So welcome back to another Tech Talk. Again, I just want to say up front, I'm not a doctor or a scientist. So a lot of the information I'm bringing you today is an interpretation of their science that they have taken, their experiments that they have done. And I've based my training a lot off what they have said. So really what I want to do today is just explain a little bit about what I have learned and what I am learning with regards to this. So I want to talk a little bit about becoming fat adapt. So you'll often hear in the keto world guys saying, "Hey, are you fat adapt yet?" And this process generally takes about 3 to 4 weeks, and sometimes even longer, depending on your body. So most people, in terms of their fat oxidation, and what do I mean by fat oxidation? I mean your body's ability to use fat as a fuel source instead of glucose. So the blue line represents a general high carbohydrate diet. The red line represents a low carbohydrate diet, and this is your fat oxidation rates over your exercise intensity at the bottom. Okay, so the harder I exercise, the less fat I use, the more carbohydrates I have to start using. Where if you see a fat adapt, I can exercise at quite a high rate and still use high amounts of fat to keep up my pace. So someone asked me, am I talking about the Maffetone method? And I would say yes if I'm talking about a high carbohydrate diet. So if I'm in a high carbohydrate diet, I would stick in zone 2, and that's really what it is. It's a low heart rate exercise, low intensity program with a little bit of high intensity in the mix. Where one of the things you've got to note when you are eating a low carbohydrate diet on an ongoing basis, when your fat oxidation starts to increase, you actually have to increase your intensity as well to keep in that optimal fat burning zone and to increase your body's ability to burn fat. And I want to give you a little bit of example from last week. So last week, Tuesday, I spoke a lot about this particular run, and I did another one on Tuesday. I want to show you the differences. So last week, you guys and I did the 6:43 with 10 kilometers, so extremely slow, no bull run if I'm going to be running like this. I do want to say if you are tuning in, maybe it would be a good idea just to watch last week's video first and just pause this one and come back to it. Okay, so the bottom line represents my heart rate, the red line, the blue line represents my pace. So you can see I had to drop my pace significantly to keep myself in a zone 2 setup. Why? Because I'll show you what I was running. I was running 8 kilometers slow, zone 2, and then the final 2 kilometers I was doing 30-second hard, 30-second easy. And I was on about day 11 of my high fat eating or low carbohydrate eating. Most importantly, I started out with a 5:55 kilometer, and then by the time I was finishing off my zone 2 stuff, I was sitting at a 7:36 pace. So a significant drop off in pace to maintain a low heart rate. And that I was also working my aerobic system at this particular time, and then moving into working my anaerobic system towards the end of the run. But what I want to say here is my fat oxidation rates over here were not great. So you can see the drop off in pace to maintain a low heart rate. My aerobic system as well as my fat burning ability after week 2 was not highly superior. And that's what we're talking about. So maybe what I was doing over here is I was sitting slightly higher than a high carbohydrate diet. My graph probably going something like that. But what has happened this week? So let me show you what I was doing. Another 10 kilometer. This time I ran at 5:39. So I was doing 7 kilometers slow at zone 2, but then I did do 3 kilometers with 1 minute hard, 1 minute easy, working my anaerobic system at the end. But more importantly, let me show you my low intensity stuff, and that's my body's fat burning ability and my aerobic system. So I started off with a 5:18 kilometer, and then another 5:18, 5:47, 5:53, 6:12, 5:53, 5:56. And for those of you who are sharp, you will see that that is Bill Rowan pace, mostly, except that 6:12. I've got Bill Rowan pace sitting there, all at a low intensity fat burning zone. You can see my pace didn't drop off as much while I kept my heart rate in zone 2. At the end, obviously, I pushed my heart rate up a bit, so the figures look a bit, the pace is a bit skewed on the main at the top. So yeah, check it out. So a lower drop off in pace, able to keep a low heart rate. Now, guys say, doesn't this mess up your high intensity stuff? And I want to show you why not. So last year I ran a marathon, the Durban City Marathon. I was still quite heavy. I was 92.6 kgs, so that's quite heavy for my body setup to be running a marathon. I also hadn't done that much training. So you can see from the 1st of January, I was 109 kgs. I actually started off at 109 kgs on the 1st of Jan, and I had worked my way all the way down to 92 by the time we ran the Durban City Marathon. So I had significant weight loss, but my training was not great. But one thing I did do well is I had eaten a full 2 months with a high-fat, low-carbohydrate diet. And I want to show you something crazy. This almost looks impossible. So you can see my pace. Where are we? So it was a 42, and I know for some of the faster runners here, this might not look quite significant, but I mean, I want to show you something else though, which is quite significant. So 357.40, 537 per minute pace. So you'll see very consistent pace, not much drop off. The little lines are the stops, the little white lines where I was either getting nutrition or walking, and you can see at the end it gets a little bit more up and down. So I battled from 320 towards the end. Check at my heart rate, so obviously a massive push up, but this is really what I want to show you is my time in zones. So this is ridiculous. So my zone 2, 3 and lower 4 was my first half of the marathon, which is quite normal to run a marathon like that. But then what I want to show you is I was able to do 1 hour and 52 in the red zone. This should be impossible. This should not be happening. If I was on a high carbohydrate diet, I would not be able to do this. I would not be able to push this hard and still be able to maintain my pace. So I want to show you, explain why again this is able to happen. So on a high carbohydrate diet, when I get to about 85%, I'm mostly using carbohydrates. So I'm topping up every 40 minutes with 100 grams of carbs. I'm drinking juices. I'm having my electrolytes, etc. So on this particular day, I can exercise at a high heart rate and I still have decent fat burning ability. So I'm still getting a significant amount of fuel from fat. So I was still topping up with carbohydrates, but so my body had a really good mix of both fat and carbohydrates, even though I was running in a zone 5 setup. So were my legs fatiguing? Yes. So the lactic acid was building up, and before the race, I did quite a lot of threshold training to really improve my body's ability to dump the lactic acid. So what was happening here is where you saw that jumpy is I was jumping in between zone 4, zone 5, zone 4, zone 5, but I was able to maintain 1 hour and 52 in zone 5, which is the most important part. So that's just showing you what happens once your body becomes fat adapt. So guys are saying, well, doesn't that limit your ability? No, it highly improves your ability. So if we're going back to Comrades now and what I've been talking about, I'm going to be able to run, hopefully, really decent splits, all at an easy zone 2 pace. Because why? I've been eating like that up until Comrades from now, and my body's become fat adapt. Let me show you what a keto diet is. So obviously guys get a little bit confused between banting and keto. It's slightly different. Banting, you actually end up having quite a little bit more protein in that particular diet, where a specific ketogenic diet is where you're going 75% fats, 20% protein. And this is where guys generally get it wrong. They sit and eat biltong all day, so their protein intake is quite high. And then 5% carbs. So there's 2 days that I will eat more protein, and that'll be on a Tuesday and on a Thursday. Reason why? Tuesdays are my interval days, and Thursday my hill sprint days. So the days where I want to build muscle and I'm building my anaerobic system, I generally throw in maybe 30 to 40% protein on that particular day, just because I want to make sure that I am building those short twitch fibers, and my strength training. I'm building strength on those particular days. So yeah, we're going to have a bit more protein, but most of the time I'm sticking to 75% fats, and I'm limiting the amount of protein. Again, what is the point of doing all this? We're doing this because we want to increase our body's ability to oxidize fat. So I hope this has been helpful. Again, I do want to say, if you have any questions, comments, or thoughts around this, I would love you to pop a comment in the below. Ask me any questions. Yeah, and I can run some of the stuff by some of my friends as well, if I don't know the answers, or maybe find a couple links. What I will do is link this particular study in the comment section, so you can have a little read of that as well, where I'm getting some information or how this particular graph came about. Other than that, have an incredible day, and I will see you again next week.